Hi, and welcome to the Land Pioneers podcast, where we get to meet some of the most prominent land developers and experts in the development industry. Please listen to the gems and learn from the experience of these giants of the industry. And so today's guest is Anne Baker from Two Crowns Marketing. Welcome, Anne.
Stan, thank you so much for inviting me to join your podcast today.
Absolutely. So, look, just briefly, we met Anne whilst working on a large-scale development project in Plumpton, and I was really excited to talk to Anne just about her passion and the inspiring marketing strategy for that project. The clients weren't the simplest or the easiest ones because they were sort of needing a lot more marketing guidance, and I felt that the work that Anne and her team created was really, really outstanding and hopefully led to some pretty good success for that project. But just a little bit briefly about the Land Pioneers podcast. So, and the sponsor behind it is Eagle Vision, where we're your trusted partners in property development. And we're driven by a commitment to transparency and a straightforward process in order to make sure that our clients obviously create the sustainable legacies that they are trying to create with their broadacre projects. So here are three things that make Eagle Vision unique and where we may be a good fit. So less is more, 24/7, and extreme transparency. Less is more, strategy beats tactics every day. With our own background in property development, we feel that the strategy of effective 3D visuals is by far the most important component, and it takes priority over everything else. And after over 700 projects completed in our 16 years of history, we're pretty confident in what we are creating. 24/7, around the clock, with our team based in Australia and Europe, we work on a 24-hour turnaround basis to increase pace for some of the projects that we work on, and ultimately no surprises and total transparency that we're priding ourselves on. We've built systems and processes to ensure that our clients are involved at every step of the way and they get to see the workings of the machine internally. We're always thinking of new ideas and how we can obviously create better products for our clients. And one of these things lately has been the interactive master plans for large-scale communities, which have some of the features such as tracking by behavior for informed decision-making in terms of which lots are attracting the most interest. So experience the future today. Visit us at www.eaglevision.com.au and discover a world of possibilities. So now back to our guest. So a little bit about Anne and why I really wanted to chat to her. So Anne holds a master's degree in business from RMIT, along with studying at Harvard Business School and University of New South Wales and some of the others where she studied communication and journalism. Anne's early roles at FKP and R Corp honed her skills in marketing management, leading to some pretty senior positions at Mirvac, where she managed national projects to enormous success. In 2014, after many years of working for some of Australia's most significant developers, Anne made the decision to start her own business and took on the role of director at Two Crowns Marketing, growing her company into a leading consultancy, known for developing really tailored marketing and strategic communication solutions for her property clients. She's demonstrated her marketing leadership with plenty of board experience and roles as a mentor and an annual awards judge for the Australian Marketing Institute. And most recently, and as if she wasn't busy enough, added to her schedule as the marketing director for Heather Bray 1854 Restoration Project and runs a podcast under the same banner. So Anne's achievements speak absolute volumes, from crafting impactful marketing strategies to fostering brand growth and community engagement. So Anne, really keen to hear about some of the insights from the journey that you've taken. But if you want to start us off, maybe like how did you decide to progress from a fairly sort of corporate position with Colonials through to moving into property development and greenfield projects?
Well, firstly, Stan, very warm thanks for such a lovely introduction. When we hear somebody talking about our career, it's always like, oh yeah, I did do all of those things. That's right. But look, it's interesting. I had a wonderful experiences being on the client side, working for a range of really wonderful thought leaders, right from as you've mentioned, FKP, Gandel Asset Management, or Colonial as they were later known as, working in retail and asset management. I had some wonderful experiences, but I got to a point in my career where I also had young children, and I wanted to create an environment where I had more flexibility. And one of my close friends and a valued colleague, Sonia Miller, hello Sonia, if you're listening, had an opportunity for me to join a project she was running as project director as a consultant. But, when she came to me, she said, Anne, I've got a window of a week. You'll need to decide if you can take this on pretty quickly, because I really need the resource. So after thinking about starting my own business for so many years, I had a week and made the decision to start my own business within that week. And I remember taking on the contract, which was 2 days a week, and thinking, oh my goodness, will I ever be able to afford buying myself a latte again? Because my salary just disappeared overnight into this uncertain consultancy. So, 10 years on, and it is 10 years this year, I'm very, very proud at, the business that has been built. And I will add that there's no silver bullet to it. There are real ups and downs, and lots of challenges as a business owner that I'm sure, Stan, you could relate to, unforeseen things that you haven't done before, the whole spectrum of things, even like IT. How do I work this problem out because I don't have a IT specialist on the floor anymore? So, 10 years has been a journey, and I'm proud that I've lasted in business, and not only lasted but flourished as well over that time.
Yeah, great. And look, we're going right into the depths of it. So why don't we pick this up? So as a mum, obviously that transition from here is this corporate position, but higher priorities take place. Now, how did you manage the time demands on you and clients' demands and kids and
look,
all of
not very well, Stan. And my image of what it would be versus what it was were two different things. And I have to say, if I had a young mother asking me, should I start a business now when she's got children under 5, with wholehearted warmth, I would say just wait a little bit because it's really tough. And for me as well, I think I was leaving a specialty role, so a specialty marketing communications role, and taking my business in that direction. So people knew me for that, and that technically made it easier. But still, you're really all the time promoting yourself. You're working on your current clients and then hustling for new work. So
new work too.
Yeah, that's right. So you asked me that question, and I honestly don't have a pure answer for you, only to say that there was a lot of chaos and smokes and mirrors in the background, as well as days that just worked like a dream and were everything I'd hoped for.
Yeah, sure thing. So if you can reflect, maybe if we start with FKP and RCorp and Mirvac, what were some of the campaigns that you're most proud of and some of the challenges that you'd overcome whilst working through those?
So when I worked for FKP Property Group, the property market was really on a bullish run. Everything seemed to work. And I was in the mid-stage of my sort of marketing career, if you like. I was in management in my first sort of really senior roles. And I think for a little while I was lulled into a sense of security about how easy it was. Things just sold. We launched campaigns. People liked them. And I was, running with a great team. And that was wonderful. Then what happened was that we were at the doorstep of the GFC, and things became really hard. And a team, a national marketing team, which was probably sort of 25 people, overnight was 2 or 3, of which I was one. Wow. And that was really, really hard, because you're really having to think very, very carefully about the money you spend, the project activity you're engaging in at a time where, Stan, I don't know if you remember that period, but nobody was buying anything. I
remember it very well.
It was quite desperate, and a really important learning curve for me, and a bit of a slapdown, I think, for a smug, middle marketer that had enjoyed a market that was up. We learned
a lot of us got those lessons. Yeah,
absolutely. And my career and my skill set is better for that as well. Probably one of the projects I'm proudest of is working with the talented team at Mirvac on the Eastbourne project, which was the former Dallas Brooks Hall. Mirvac are such wonderful developers, and really working collaboratively with Bates Smart, built and envisaged and built a beautiful building that was very, very premium. Set square metre prices at a very high rate. Achieved it. It was that was one of my favourite projects, because there were so many groundbreaking elements, and there were times where it was very difficult as well. There was a lot of decision making, a lot of influencing that needed to be done by our sales team, and the project is award-winning and a sellout, and I worked with a great team, all of which were from many different facets of skill sets. So that would probably be a highlight. Probably another notable period would be the start of COVID, which again tested my skills as a marketer. At the time, I was doing some work for Cbus Property, and that work continued after a break, but again, it required a reimagining of how we were going to deliver certain elements. And I felt in some ways that I was taken back to the GFC time, where there were challenges that I hadn't foreseen, and things that were happening, and that was happening for everybody globally, not just for us in Melbourne.
Yeah, interesting. So let's, if we can, step to Eastbourne. And marketing is transformative. It probably goes across from apartment developments through to housing estates and so forth. So what were the particular, so this would have been 2013 or thereabouts?
Yeah, thereabouts 13, 14, yeah.
Yeah, so by then the visualization side of things would have been quite well established and quite sophisticated. There was probably, well, I'd love to hear from you, I guess, what were the key sort of marketing strategies that made that project be more successful and set some of those records that you mentioned?
I genuinely believe that Mirvac are distinctive developers, and I don't just say that for lip service. They have a integrated business model whereby they, have marketing, sales, construction, development, all under one roof, and they continue to improve on their buildings consecutively. So they take that feedback very seriously, and loop that into planning for the next project. What made the Eastbourne such a wonderful project was firstly the location, that beautiful, blue chip spot in East Melbourne, that, is at the very heart of some wonderful things about Melbourne City, the beautiful parkland. Then there's the polish of the Paris end of Collins Street, and then just over the way you've got Fitzroy, Brunswick. So it really is the nexus for a whole range of experiences for the residents. So there's the location. Then there's the quality of the design. Bake Smart, need little introduction in terms of their absolute standard, gold standard of design, working with Mervac's design team to create a very luxe, premium opportunity. So the scope to be able to create something. And for us in marketing, we were provided with the opportunity to recreate another Melburnian, and really deliver something that was quite distinctive. So, as a lot of these really beautiful projects, it's a sum of many parts, and it's really that shared vision of aiming for something that's really quite unique and distinctive, as a common goal.
Yeah. How long did it take you to put together that sort of marketing strategy for this project?
It's probably the marketing team, before I came on board and joined the team, they were working on it for a year. I was certainly working on it for many months with a great team. And one of the defining things about that program was working very, very closely with the sales team, and in a way that probably I hadn't done before, just to really make sure that the sales goals were aligned with the design, with what we were putting out there as a campaign, it was a very rewarding experience, but very challenging, because you're really trying to establish something new at a higher level.
Yeah, brilliant. And so that sort of integrated marketing strategy, you could almost say that worked. If a developer was to take away any of those ingredients that you just talked about, do they have any chance of achieving this kind of success?
Yeah.
If, let's say, they don't use a superstar brand name architect or something like that.
I think when there's a genuine, I believe when there's a genuine commitment by management to deliver something that is unique, and that they are willing to allocate the budget, they are willing to draw on, some of the best consultants and resources available to them. If there is a genuine vision, I believe that it's possible. I also say, conversely, Stan, that if your project is a mid-tier or a budget project, own it. Own it. Go into the market being very clear that this isn't for everyone, but this is what we are. We're going to own it. And I've had that conversation with a range of developers, and as a consultant, you can come in and have some more really clear conversations. It's like, it's okay if it's not premium. It doesn't all have to be luxe. And I probably say that's a mistake that I see, is that you start these conversations and it's like, oh, it's going to be amazing, and it's going to have this and it's going to have that. It's like, that's standard. That's actually standard. So what have we got here that's distinctive? So there aren't that many projects that I've worked on that are truly, truly unique. And there's no shame in that. But where we run into trouble is if you're pitching your product up here and the product is somewhere there. So that's sort of the marketer's challenge.
The disconnect.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where I think we also need to be able to find our voice and be clear with our clients to advise them that, we need to sell the project. So let's sell it on its merits and not against a competitor that might be doing something completely different.
Yeah, interesting. And so in that experience, you've obviously worked on some apartment developments. How does that now translate to Broadacres and Greenfield?
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of my career working on higher end, high density apartments. I've certainly done my share of land developments, and I have to say I really enjoy working on master plan projects and land developments because it's a different pace than the very, very high pressured relatively short term focus of master plan communities. So at the moment, I have 2 clients with master plan communities. Stan, you and I collaborated on one recently over the past over the past year or so. I have another client that is soon to be embarking on an extensive 15 to 20 year master plan project in Rockbank. And I find I really do enjoy the different pace that comes about. But, again, that landscape has changed over recent years as well.
Yeah, and so when you say that sort of different pace, what exactly do you mean by that?
I would have to say, Stan, the people that I work with on master plan projects almost have a different type of personality than the ones on the inner city cut and thrust. It's a very lumpy program for built form, for high density built form. You've got a lot of activity, a lot of energy, a lot of marketing work happening over let's say a 2 to 3 year period. With master plan, it's more of once you pass the launch period, it's more of a gentle pattern, and it goes up and down. And that's not to say it's not demanding and it's not time consuming, but it's more of a long distance run. And you're building things for the community. You're working with community groups. You take a perspective that's 5 to 10 years, and it's this constant sense of building on. I was privileged to work on Waverley Park in the latter stages of the project when I worked with Mirvac, and to see the level of community infrastructure,
engagement,
the meaning that people took out of living in their community at Waverley Park was, very rewarding to see. And I was working on that project for a year to 18 months, and there was 20 or so other years of work done by many talented people. So there's a stronger sense of community and a buy-in of developers to engage in a community that is broader than what we might have traditionally seen in high density.
Yeah. And so when you were launching stages at Waverley, what was it like? Was each stage presented with a different approach, or how were you able to sort of transition, right? So now we've completed this part. Now we're moving on to the next one.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. At the time of Waverley Park, it was so established that it became, I was engaged in more of okay, we need to sell the next stage. And we knew that, sales would, and not to be overconfident, but, the sales would tick along. always at the start of a project, the stage launches are bigger and they mean more because generally they're connected to establishing amenity. So, generally stages 1, 1, 2, 3 might be connected to the opening or the not the opening, connected to the opening of a cafe.
Entry feature kind of stuff.
That's right. Then there might be a pocket park, and then there might be the wetlands. So we'd always, think about anchoring a stage in the geography of the estate, or some level of amenity that we had either just committed to or was, it was built in advance. And again, it's a long time to be on the market for 10 plus years. So the challenge is, as you point out, to constantly try to breathe life into subsequent stages, and, point to the proof points of what the developer has delivered already. And you can start to talk to that. Whereas at the start, it's a dream, isn't it? You're selling a dream, and you're really building in confidence of purchases in the developer, which, Stan, your wonderful work that you did on our client recently certainly assisted us in being able to do that.
Did your future stages sort of cater for larger lots? What were some of the mechanics around that? Do you recall at all?
So I think there would be stages that would be, obviously larger lots, and like any developer, there's always a focus on having a broad mix of lots. But then as the development matures, there's probably more medium density apartments and whatnot. So
sure, you got like super lots.
Yeah, that's right. So, so as the development gains, maturity, so does the product offering, and there's the opportunity to add in some of those medium density elements, which are certainly a very attractive from a price point of view for first home buyers. I think too, stages also reflect the market, and driving through an estate. I remember driving through one on a site tour, and I'll sort of remain nameless, but you was in Point Cook, and you drive through and you see the start of it. It was so grand. And then when you get to stages 7, 8, 9, you think, what was happening here? Because the streetscapes sort of changed, houses look cheaper. And then there was subsequent stages that again, had that beautified kind of boulevard element. So the market does dictate as well the appetite for larger lots, smaller lots, big builds, little builds. And I think, where we're at the moment, affordability is top of mind. And, for first home buyers, it is, the reality is you need to move 15, 20 kilometres out in order to buy an affordable home.
Yeah. And so then the lot sizes become a little bit smaller because the construction cost still stays fairly high. So, all these dynamics kind of dictate almost to the developer what they can and what they can't do with their project.
That's right.
Work? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, some real key challenges around all this, because ultimately if the developer had a particular vision for the overall project, but all of a sudden the market has shifted so dramatically that they had to adjust. What's it like with marketing? What's it like with communication when you're then trying to continue that initial vision of our project is up here, but now we're delivering product that's sort of not quite up there anymore?
So I think that the first indicator of stress is always talk around budgets. I have a client, a long-term client that's in construction, and one of the conversations that we're having recently is, how can we get more inquiries for less money? And for him, he needs to keep his site teams working. Otherwise, he has to let them go. And, so budget becomes that first part. And it's challenging. And so, we start really when the market is tight. What you see is heavily price pointed tactical marketing activity. Works sometimes, but what you need to remember with price points is there's always somebody that's going to be cheaper than you. So what we advise our clients is, yes, we understand why you want to go out with that message, but what value do you deliver to the customer? Let's think about the value that you offer. It's attention to detail. It's great service. It's the fact that you've been in your industry for 25 years and you haven't let your clients down. You've been reliable and solid. So it's our job to think about those longer term drivers, because if you're thinking about the short term and quick, let's get sales, and we know how important that is. Once that difficult cycle in the market is done, then what you've done is you've damaged your brand and you've dumbed down your product.
Yeah, and that could be much, much worse as a consequence than perhaps getting a few shortcut sort of sales in the play.
Yeah, and Stan, the other thing I'd like to add on that too is what we're also seeing is that, through all the wonderful digital capabilities, our customers, residential customers, for example, are getting smarter. They're smarter, they're more savvy. They don't need the initial level of explanation that they might have required 10 or 15 years ago. So what we're also seeing is a change in buyer behaviour outside of what the market is doing. Savvy buyers don't want to engage with sales agents in the way that they might have done in the past, where we have sales agents sitting in a display and having large groups of people flowing through to look and see and feel and touch. And I think that as well as, the affordability issue at the moment, developers of master plan projects and high density, medium density resi are also struggling with the fact that sales customer journey has changed. It's changing. And what we used to do 5 to 10 years ago isn't necessarily the formula for success, especially in tighter markets.
Interesting. And so how have you sort of seen, so if the display suites aren't working in the same way that they used to back 15, 20 years ago, what is working right now?
I think what would work and what would enhance success is training for sales teams to think through the customer journey in a way that responds to what they need. It might take developers to change KPIs of salespeople. So rather than how many people have come through the display this week, it might be, how many, different, it doesn't spring to mind, but different sort of ways of measuring success. I think too, having gated content does help, but I don't think it's the only answer. In good markets, we don't have to think these things through as much, but now I think that it takes some level of a range of work streams, being marketing, sales, to sit down and talk about what's happening. So, for example, the client that I was just referring to before in construction, we've run an online campaign. They've received a strong level of inquiry, but their level of frustration is that they're not coming into the sales office. And my response to that is, well, maybe that expectation needs to change. What do they need? Because clearly they're opting in all their details for a reason. They're not responding to phone calls. Why not? Rather than just packing it away and saying it's not working, let's understand what part of it's not working, because clearly some of it is. So for me, and from what I'm seeing, that's work in progress. I don't believe we always have the answer, especially in a market like this, which needs careful thought and consideration, and where money is much tighter than it has been in the last sort of 5 years or so for client campaigns.
Yeah, interesting. And so you've obviously got inbound, outbound campaigns, but then social media seems to be, well, almost an enigma, because actually to get a result that you can actively track from a social media campaign versus an inbound that you've sent something out, or outbound, then they've inquired, you can see sort of a exact transition. Are you finding that social media is working for Marketing Greenfield?
I find that it's more effective. In my experience, it works in different ways in high density versus master plan communities. However, I look to projects like Woodley, which is award-winning, very successful. Some very talented marketers have worked on that project. I worked on that project very, very briefly in its absolute infancy, but I think they do a really great job with their social media. I think that, though, that's also
community management.
That's right. That's also reflected in the quality of the product. They have so much amenity on site. They've really invested in the whole story behind Woodley, which helps from a social media perspective. One thing that I do see increasingly being utilised with social media for property campaigns is the use of influencers. Micro influencers as well as larger names. They are working particularly well with some high density inner city projects, really sort of talking to that lifestyle and desirability and, endorsing that. And that seems to be coming through in campaign requirements and clients seeking that type of media, which again, it is connected to social media, but it's another stream of activity, that kind of sits alongside social media and PR.
But perhaps it's more about the target audience. So the millennials perhaps respond a little bit better to influencers that maybe baby boomers that kind.
That's absolutely correct, Stan. Again, another client, that I work very closely with at the moment, that they are heavily targeted millennials, and we are, in the process of reviewing a whole range of potential influencers for a new project they've got coming up. And that needs careful consideration too, because being an influencer is all about reputation and value and values. And so that needs to be considered as to how well they can represent the brand and also the inquiry that they can generate for the client.
Yeah. Is there any way of sort of tracking this kind of?
Yeah, there is.
Right.
There are sort of various tags that can be incorporated into their posts, so we can track how many eyeballs and actions have been taken as a result of their post. It's amazing, isn't it?
Interesting. Yeah, look, it's a whole science, and that's where marketing has shifted, it seems, so much from the traditional sort of ways to how maybe things could be done better these days.
Yeah, that's right, Santa. It's a really good point. And, again, when I started my career, it was, very much about marketing and communications, and that would be ad layouts and press releases and writing stories. Now, the modern marketer really needs to be able to fluently talk to a very broad range of elements that still includes marketing and communications, but now that's sort of splintered out into areas like, your social media, your digital specialists, management of influencers, different types of media that didn't exist. So it's very dynamic, constantly evolving. I think that's why it's been able to hold my interest for, sort of 25 or so years, is because it just keeps me on my toes. And whenever I think I know a lot, I'm just brought right back down, and it's like, okay, all right, this is new. Let's learn more about this.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Heather Bray.
Yes, Heather Bray.
That's been a bit of a recent project for you. Yes. What is that all about?
And hello, Julie Federa, who is the our figurehead and the lead of Heather Bray. That is a wonderful project and certainly one of my career favourites so far as well.
Yeah, so now what actually happened there? Could you share a bit?
Okay, so for those listeners, for our audience that don't know what Heather Bray 1854 is that we have my friend Julie Federa and her husband Vincent bought a mansion in Caulfield. They are very clever. They have renovated and restored and numerous properties over their period of time together. And Heather Bray they were looking for a downsizer, and they stumbled across Heather Bray, which is roughly on about an acre of land in Caulfield. So what they've bought is not a downsizer, it's actually a supersizer. And they've embarked on restoring the home. So not renovating it with new architectural add-ons. They are faithfully restoring the home to its former glory with a considered approach to adding some modern elements in to give it the modern comfort. So, we think about things like heating, cooling, all of the mod cons, obviously Wi-Fi, connectability. They're really doing a beautiful job. The house is actually, as I mentioned, it sits on close to an acre of land. There is the beautiful home, which was largely intact from its original state, and then there's a stable and a wash house and a beautiful on what will be a beautiful landscaped property with a pool. The interesting thing about Heather Bray, and the reason why we're talking about it, is that we have created, Julie spoke to me about a year ago, and she said, look, Anne, I really want to document this process for people that are interested in restoration and for our friends and family that continue to ask questions about what we're doing. And I said, oh, that sounds amazing. And, she said, well, would you help me? And I said, yeah, sure. I'm happy to help you. Take photos and post stuff and, do whatever. Well, fast forward a year and we've got now over 43,000 followers. We have a podcast. We are developing lines of homewares and designer interior design elements from wallpapers and paints, right through to our Heather Bray candle, which we've recently developed. There's a beautiful Moreton Bay fig tree, one of the oldest in Victoria, in the front yard. And so we've developed a Moreton Bay fig scented candle. We have run a whole range of tours through the property. And one really important thing, Stan, that that comes with the Heather Bray story is that anything that's earned from a commercial perspective by the business entity we've created, there's an apportioned donation towards heritage organisations. So you think of the National Trust, the Glen Ira Historical Society. We ran a series of tours a month or two ago, and the proceeds of that, we were able to donate $10,000 to the National Trust to support the restoration of Labassa. So, there's a legacy component in there. For Julie and Vincent, this will be their family home, which they plan to pass on for many generations. There's no plans in their mind to flip it or sort of move somewhere else. And then what we as a team work on is this really beautiful kind of storytelling, and there's a lovely commercial and community component to it as well. It's a very creative process, and there's no blueprint for something like this. It was really born out of an idea that Julie had, an early morning walk. It was really cold. It was the start of winter. Julie, sort of told me about her vision. I love my friend dearly, and I thought, well, that sounds like quite grand, but anyway, I believe you, and let's go, and here we are. So so I'm leading the marketing function for that project, and the podcasting is a key part of that.
That's amazing. Look, and as a marketer, there are just so many opportunities to take an story and then create outlets for it. So, just commend you on that journey. And for people that want to check it out further, it's just heatherbray1854.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, .com. And then you can find us on Instagram at heatherbray1854 and also Facebook as well. So, and we are on Threads too. So we cover all bases, Stan. And, again, we can be found, our podcast can be found on all major platforms as Heather Bray Talks.
It's amazing to sort of witness your application of just fundamentals of marketing to so many different ideas and strategies. For young professionals looking into getting into the property development space and maybe greenfields or apartment high density, whatever it may be, what would be your advice for them in terms of marketing and how they should approach this career?
I would probably encourage them to really find themselves working for a developer that believed in the function of marketing. It can be pretty soul-destroying working for a developer that really doesn't believe in storytelling, brand, all of those potential softer elements that can be seen as a cost center. I have had the benefit of both, working for both. And in your early part of your career, you need to be in an environment that helps educate you, supports you in learning, forgives mistakes, invests in formal and informal training, and really, allows that career growth. So I would always say, try to align yourself with a developer that has a good reputation. Even if you are earning a little bit less, you'll be gaining a lot more from a career perspective moving forwards. I would also say that finding a mentor is very useful. Now, a mentor doesn't always need to be somebody that's 20 years older than you and, an armful of degrees and qualifications. It can be somebody that, is inspiring in some way, that again, you can align yourself and spend time with, that is supportive of goal setting and encouraging. All of us in our careers, whatever career we have, we've had setbacks and things that happen that really can demolish your self-esteem. And it's amazing how quickly that happens. And I see that happen particularly quickly with young people. There's a lot of bluster and, energy, and then something will happen, and it's like all the air comes out of the room, and they're left, struggling and scrambling. So that's when you need good people around you and an employer that is supportive. I would also suggest that, as I've said earlier in this podcast, it can be really tempting to talk about going out on your own. Really learn your craft before you do that, because you'll find very quickly people won't pay you when they realise you are not viable as a service provider, and nothing shines a light on having strong skills and being a consultant, because if you don't have the know-how and the agility, you don't get your next contract. And one of the things I'm proudest about in my business is that some of the clients I've had for 10 years. So, getting back to that, I think that, starting out, it's about alignment with good people, being humble, being ready to accept that you've got your qualifications. Really, that entitles you to a learner's permit. And then, building on that. That would be my advice.
Yeah, great advice, because it is so tempting these days. You get yourself a business card and off you go. There's a marketing consultant, but it's far, far more than just that. And being able to navigate all these different cycles that are just inevitable in the industry that we're in.
Yeah, and I think too, what I've witnessed is, and again, full respect to our young audience today, there are skills there, but it's when snags are hit, when there's unforeseen challenges, that's when you see the lack of experience shine through or come through, and they're the things that are the watch outs, and that's why emerging marketers just need those level of supports and handrails for when things aren't so great.
Brilliant. Look, Anne, really, really appreciate your time today. So just for our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. You can obviously find us across the board, and like and subscribe if you would like to see further episodes. Thanks again for your time, and see you again soon.
Thank you, Stan. Thanks so much.